I'm still watching. Thank you. Still watching Top Gear in Polish. Brilliant.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time and coming here. We'll do it a bit informal,
Yeah, as you like. Yes.
and it is on the record, but we'll try to make some order so everybody will have the chance to ask the questions and get the answers. With your permission, Prime Minister Johnson, I will start with Rabbi Margolin. This is the first time the journalists have the chance to ask you direct questions, and I would like you please to tell us what is the main reason for this delegation today.
Well, as has been said earlier, I know unfortunately we almost repeat the same words every single year, but every single year the message is still the same. The situation is getting worse every single year. And last year we said that this is the worst time for the Jews since the Second World War. And sadly, we can say this again this year, the exact same message for every visible Jew. And I could say it as a visible Jew. This is something that we feel every single day. This is something that families feel all around Europe. The situation is getting worse and worse. And what we do see this year that we did not see in the years before is the normalization of the hatred towards Jewish people. If in the past to be called anti-Semite was an insult, today people are proud to say that they have issues with Jews. More and more European people, according to different polls, see European Jews responsible for the war in Gaza. And more than that, according to the latest polls that were published, approximately 20% of Europeans feel that the Jewish people are not only responsible for the war, but they should be accused for the war in Gaza, which means that if they have an issue with the war and they have an issue with the consequences, then they feel that this is right to blame the Jews. Jews are afraid to live in Europe. People are not happy, and too many people considering leaving this continent. So I think that this is a very, very dark time, and yet we still believe in Europe, and we still believe that there is still a chance, and there is still hope. And for this reason, we invited important politicians, legislators to come to Auschwitz to see the place where the hatred ends, to see what happened, what was the last stop of the train. It started with incitement, with hatred, with violation. It continues with silence, and then it's ended in Auschwitz. We are now at the stage where the hatred is there, the incitement is there, the silence is there, the violation is there. But we have to make sure that the train will not get to its last stop. This is the reason we are here, and I really, really hope that we still could hold the train and change or improve a bit the situation so there will be still a future for the Jewish community in Europe.
Thank you, Rabbi Margolin. Mr. Prime Minister, this is not a decree from heavens, right? This is something that a real governing positions can treat.
You mean the rise in anti-Semitism?
Yes.
Of course, you're right. And I think that a lot of the problem is caused by a failure to give leadership on this issue and a failure to identify for me, what is the real moral difference between Israel as a democracy and what Israel is trying to achieve and what Hamas is trying to achieve and the methods that Israel is using and the methods that Hamas has been using. And look, I agree very strongly with with Rabbi Margolin. I think it's very, very sad to see the rise in this feeling that, frankly, I never thought I would see. When I was running London, it just wasn't a thing. I mean, yes, of course, bubbling under, there's always the fear of anti-Semitism, but it didn't manifest itself in the same way. I don't believe Jewish people went around London feeling apprehensive in the same way. Looking Jewish, wearing Jewish head kippah and stuff. It didn't seem to me that people felt intimidated, but now I think in European cities they do. And politicians have to show a lead, and they have to call it out. And it's not just a question of cracking down on people who are intimidating and violent towards Jews. It's about attacking the basis of the assumptions that are forming this anti-Semitism, because it is patently not true that there is an equivalence between Israel and Hamas. And there is a difference between a democracy and an Islamo-fascist theocracy. And the difference was obvious, by the way, when we had the ceasefire. And which organizations, which left-wing commentators, where did you see the denunciations of what Hamas immediately did with their gangland rivals, the summary executions? Where were the demonstrations against that? So look, I think there's a problem, and I think it needs calling out. And I think politicians need to be articulating the problem much, much more clearly.
Thank you. We will open for questions. Please state your media outlet, and we'll go around the table. Please go ahead.
Lauren Belfast, Jewish Chronicle. Primarily to you, Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Your former Prime Minister. I think just before anybody gets confused.
Once a Prime Minister, always a Prime Minister.
Not in Britain.
We're seeing in the United States the rise in particular of figures linked to anti-Semitism and that being enabled by commentators the likes of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
How concerned are you about that rise on the right of politics and the Republican right?
I think it's freaky, and it's cognate with the sheer ahistoricism of the position that some of these people take on Ukraine, where the same types of people are moving into this weird space where it seems to me they've got things diametrically the wrong way round. I don't understand it. I think that on the left, there's a slightly different phenomenon going on, where you've got a lot of people thinking about big Muslim constituencies in the metropolitan areas, particularly in the UK, and you can see that in the Labour Party. And I think that has affected some of the decisions that, sadly, the Labour government has taken.
Please.
Excellent. For the next question, Harris. Can you dig in a little bit more on what's happening in Britain? What's your assessment in your country, and what went wrong, in your opinion?
I find it very hard to say. I think that it's always been around. I remember there were demonstrations against Ariel Sharon. I remember, there've been small-scale demonstrations about Israel, but it's very, very sad and surprising to see the large numbers of middle-class, intellectual people putting on the keffiyeh and going out onto the streets of London and calling for Israel to be wiped off the map, from the river to the sea, because it's the only interpretation of that phrase that makes sense. So I don't know why it's happening. I think it's ignorance, but I think it's the virus of anti-Semitism which has come out from beneath the medieval floorboards of Europe, where it has always, it's been for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's taking this form. It will go away again. We've got to be optimistic. We've got to be positive. It will get better again, but we're going through, like with a pandemic, we're going through a bad outbreak now.
Please.
Hi, Daniela Brick from Spain's newspaper, El Debate. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has taken one of the most vocal pro-Palestinian positions in Europe, recognizing Palestinian statehood and criticizing Israel's military operation in Gaza as genocidal. I would like to know your stance, or this kind of stance, in politicians, high-profile politicians in Europe. And if you allow me, my second question is the Conservative Party faces a growing challenge from Nigel Farage and the Reform UK. Do you think your party has done enough to reconnect with voters on issues like national identity, immigration, and so on? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, on Pedro Sanchez and Spain, I'm not here to comment on Spanish politics, and you wouldn't expect me to do so, but it is a perfectly respectable position for any pro-Israeli politician government like the one I led, also to want a destiny for the Palestinian people. There is no inconsistency there, and that's been the long-standing position of the British government. Unfortunately, as everybody knows, much of the problem was caused by the way the Brits handled it a long time ago. You know, we won't go back into that, but we've never made good on the second half of the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration is a wonderful thing in the first half, but the second half we've never really honored. And I'm afraid the fault lies not just with the Brits, but with the Palestinian leadership for decades and decades and decades, which has always missed the chance to get an arrangement that would suit them. And that's been their disaster. But you can't blame Israel entirely for that. I don't blame Israel. I think Israel, as I say, for me, it's a great example of a pluralist liberal democracy in a very difficult and dangerous part of the world. And I think liberals, you know, I speak of all European leaders of them, they should be supporting Israel. They should be supporting Israel. That's my strong belief.
Prime Minister, you were talking about liberals right now, and I would like to ask...
Liberals means different things in different... I realize that liberals in Europe means conservatives. What I mean is people, you know, Democrats should be supporting Israel.
So maybe, Rabbi Margoni, how do you explain the fact that there is this deadly coalition between far left and far right? Maybe you can address this question as well. We have both sides hating the Jews.
I think that if you look at the history, it was interesting to see that Jews were hated for being rich, they were hated for being poor, they were hated for being socialist, they were hated for being wealthy, of course, and they were hated for many different reasons, for spreading disease, etc. So it says the many reasons, sadly, to hate Jewish people. Of course, the faith, religion reasons. And I think that as long as government will not really deal with the issues, we'll continue to see the hatred coming from different sides. And that's very sad. Of course, there's no doubt there's a lot of political reasons also behind politicians. I know we have with us honest prime minister, but normally politicians not always take only honest decisions for ideological reasons. Many times they are forced to take different decisions for political reasons. And we are very small in numbers, so it's really hard for the Jews to influence politicians just by numbers. So for this reason, we really have to educate as many Europeans as possible to understand why hatred is bad, not only for the Jews, but for the entire continent.
Mr. Johnson.
It's very difficult to explain this phenomenon, but it's been going on for a long, long time. And I always remember, if you ever feel hated by somebody, it's 100 to 1 that it's not about you, it's about them. When people have irrational prejudice and bigotry, it's because they have some problem in their own life that they can't really address or sort out. Some problem in the economy, some problem in politics, and they find an enemy within. This is just what human nature is. And the Rabbi Margolin says that people have always found reasons, but they've never found reasons that stand up to scrutiny. they're all based on lies. And that's why I think it's so important that we call out the lies today, because if people start believing this stuff, then they will believe other lies. And, you know, the things that we've seen in the 20th century could happen again. We mustn't be so arrogant and so conceited to think that, you know, what happened in the lives of our grandparents and great-grandparents could never happen in Europe again. I think we have to realize there is a risk of that, and that needs constant vigilance.
Thank you. Marta?
Hello, my name is Marta Torres. I'm from Spain. I write for OK Diario. My name is Marta Torres. I write for a Spanish newspaper. The name is OK Diario. I'm from Spain. My question to you, I don't know if you can share this with us, but there is intel that the radical Islamists are based in the UK as well as in Spain, in Catalonia. How do you see the future of Europe, given that we have been seeing people chanting on the streets from the river to the sea, and they have like the support of the people?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think tragically, over many decades now, people, radical Islamists, have used the freedoms that they find in London, in the UK generally, the freedom of speech, the freedom of association, the rights of habeas corpus, all the protections they have under British law, to push forward an agenda that will destroy those freedoms in the countries that they come from. And that's a sad paradox, but you know, we need to be tougher with those guys. We really do.
Thank you. Please. We'll keep on going around the table. Yes, please. Amy, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm a freelance journalist from the UK. Just to follow up on that previous question, do you think the Muslim Brotherhood should be barred as they are being barred in France?
I think that they, as far as the best of my knowledge, they have been, haven't they?
No.
No?
We're apparently UK is the global hub of Muslim Brotherhood in Europe.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a serious problem. I mean, we have. I mean, it depends what you mean by barred, and how you
Banned.
How do you ban an association like that? I mean,
Well, you can ban all their charities.
Tayyip Erdogan supports the Muslim Brotherhood, and you know, it's a tough one. I don't know exactly how you would put that into practice. That's my difficulty.
David Cameron asked for a report, a review on Muslim Brotherhood, and Cengiz, who was the ambassador of UK in
Turkish.
Saudi Arabia, made a report and said if you become a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, you can become a terrorist.
Right. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm rusty on what we've done.
That's
with
okay. If you were
these
the
various
UK
groups.
PM now, how would you stop this anti-Semitism that we are seeing on our streets? And obviously you mentioned London, but it's all over the country. And obviously, you know, there have been murders in Manchester, but that very night they had a demonstration in Manchester.
I just think it needs political leadership. And I think the trouble is at the moment that nobody is calling out the reality of what Hamas's agenda is. And instead they're indulging and condoning a lot of lies about Israel. I mean, we were told that Israel was, and the IDF were enforcing starvation in Gaza. The UN assured us that was true. That turns out not to be true. We were told, I think, by the BBC that Israel had deliberately targeted a hospital. That turned out not to be true. And, you know, a lie goes halfway around the world before the truth has got its boots on, right? And I think that is the problem. And I think it's a political problem caused by nervousness about offending Muslim opinion in the UK. And that is what has changed on the left. The left in Britain used to be the Party of Israel. The Labour Party used to be the Party of Israel because they saw it as a democracy, as a place where liberal values were enshrined in the Middle East, in a very difficult part of the world. That's not the way anymore. And so you've got this weird paradox where, as somebody just said, you've got people on the right in America and on the left effectively supporting anti-democratic, theocratic regime of Hamas. It's bizarre. But the answer is, I don't think the answer is just, you know, a law enforcement issue or banning this and that group. It's about standing up strongly for Israel and calling it out. I mean, I do not see, as I think I said, I don't know if any of you in the session earlier, but if I'd been running it, I would not have stopped arms sales to Israel. Israel's our ally. It has been for a long time. Israel was under attack. Israel's facing, always has faced existential threat. Why would you choose this particular moment? We said we were standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. We then walked away. We also, as everybody knows, decided that we were going to recognize a Palestinian state entirely prematurely. I mean, yes, one day, as I've just told you, I think a two-state solution always has got to be part of the answer here. There's got to be some sort of devolved status for the Palestinians. They must have some sort of self-representation. But why do that now when you don't have a clue what the borders of this entity are? You don't know who's going to be running it. Under the terms of the Montevideo Convention of 1933, which is the UK's policy on the recognition of states, it doesn't even qualify. Why do it? The answer is, of course, it was nothing to do with the Palestinians, and it was nothing to do with addressing trying to promote peace. It was all about managing the interests of the Labour Party and managing sentiment in the Labour Party. So I think it was totally wrong. See, I think the political leadership in Britain needs to recognise that the problem that Rabbi Margolin identifies in Europe is a real one, and it's getting worse.
Rabbi Margolin, you meet prime ministers, head of states. What do you ask them to do practically?
I think it's really important to say that we shouldn't think that if we will demand or if government will continue to do what has been done so far, it's going to be helpful. I think that we have to admit the fact that many European countries signed to higher definitions. Many European countries appointed special envoys to combat anti-Semitism. Many presented a strategic plan to combat anti-Semitism. And yet I think that it will be very hard to find one single Jew in Europe that will tell you that all these measures have improved the life of Jews in Europe or made the life of Europe safer or better or hopeful or with more hope. So sadly, everything that have been done so far by European countries meant nothing in practical level. It was great on paper, but it meant nothing. It made nothing, zero impact. And I think it's very easy to see. Every government proudly present every year statistics to show how the level of crime is falling. Yet the only crimes that continue to increase and increase and increase year after year is anti-Semitism. It shows you that all the plans, all the strategic plans, all the envoys, all the higher definition, all mean nothing as long as there's no implementation. And for this reason, what will be demanding today is Europe to declare a special status for Jewish people as a protected nation, protected culture, protected language. Jews have to be protected. Jews does not have to pay for their own security. Security have to be planned. Governments have to decide that they want a Jewish future in Europe. Many European leaders said so many times, Europe without Jews is not Europe, and many great statements which again mean nothing. I would not name anyone in particular, but I could just say that a prime minister in Europe that were recently asked why he does not appoint a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism, he says that right now this is not the right time because the environment, it's not positive towards Jews. If in a situation where the level of anti-Semitism is so high, so much hatred towards Jewish people, a prime minister could say that this is not. If a prime minister, I will get. By the way, I will gain nothing for the fact that I protect him and I do not say who is he. I promise you, I will gain nothing out of it. But the fact that the prime minister could say this is not the right time to appoint a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism in a country where the Jews feel unsecured, it shows you how much all those plans mean nothing. What we need is Europe to really decide. We would like to see Jewish people in Europe, and if the governments will decide, and a special status will be in place, and that means that the Jewish community will be really supported, then we will see a future for Jewish life. So what we are asking today is European leaders to decide we do want in real Jewish life in this continent.
Wouldn't it be a great thing if European leaders or any European leader stood up and just said what a wonderful thing it is to have a flourishing, large, growing Jewish community in their country, and how economically vital that is, and how culturally enriching it is, and how they want to attract more Jewish people to come and live in there. That's what you need to hear. But when did you last hear that? That would make a difference. It's time for some philo-Semitism, if I can call it, is that the right word? Yes, partly, but it's also, it's a sort of, it's what the Rabbi Margolin just said, it's a sort of pathetic cowardliness in stating the obvious. We need to state the obvious about being positive towards European Jewry.
Nobody ever can claim that you are not clear enough.
Good, well, that's good.
Please.
Josh Howie from GB News. I think that was very ominous.
We can't close down GB News, guys. We love GB News. Come on, no. We need the lights. Is it because we are not moving around enough? It's these eco lights that have gone off. Yeah. It is. It's the eco lights. We need to jump around.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It was
Someone leaning. Very good.
We've all been.
Oh no people moving enough.
That's got it.
So you correctly identify one of the problems being this tsunami of misinformation that we've seen over the last couple of years, and frankly, one of the primary sources of that has been, unfortunately, the BBC. Do you think that there's anything that can be done to save the BBC? Is it, for Jews, it feels like it's just a utterly captured organization?
I watched it the other day with complete disbelief. I thought it was very, very partial and slanted and not fair to the issue. But they have obviously corporately made a decision that they're going to cover the conflict in Gaza in a particular way. And I think it's been very sad, and I think it's done a huge amount of damage. But it's up to politicians to stand up and call it out. And I don't want to try and pretend that when I was running, or when London, or when I was running the country, everything was an august and golden age. But we didn't have this kind of. I don't remember things being quite as toxic as they've become. Do you agree? I just don't. It just feels like we need to set some politicians need to come out and tell some basic truths.
Say moral clarity.
Moral clarity. Some moral clarity about the difference between Israel and the people who want to destroy Israel and kill every Jewish person in the world. That is still, as far as I understand it, their charter, an aim. I mean, isn't that worth pointing out?
You would hope so.
Well, can we go to the other side of the table, or anyone else
You have
here?
one question? That's okay. So,
Go ahead.
I'm Nati Langerman from Israel's John 14. So I just want to know if you would advise Jews to walk around London, central London,
Yes.
especially on Saturday, with or without wearing visible Jewish symbols like a kippah or a Star of David necklace.
I think, of course, Jewish people should, and I hope they do. And I want them to feel totally. I want all communities to feel safe in London, and they've got a problem now that they're allowing too much petty crime. They're allowing too much street robbery, too much graffiti. They need zero tolerance. Get back to some simple stuff. You know, I hesitate to remind you of it, but when I was running London, crime came down a long way. It was because we empowered the police and we took a lot of knives off the kids. And we had London became one of the safest big cities in the world. What I'm trying to get over, we can fix this problem. With political leadership, with optimism, with courage, and by being positive, we can fix this thing. This is a chronic human condition. It occasionally flares up. It's going through a bad patch at the moment. It really is. But it's not impossible to fix.
Thank you. Kanan?
Hi, Kanan Lidor from JNS, Jewish News Syndicate. Tommy Robinson recently visited Israel, was hosted in Israel by the cabinet minister, and at the Unite the Kingdom March, I saw many Jewish supporters of the Tommy Robinson movement. Is he advisable, is he a legitimate ally for Israel, for British Jews?
You're telling me something I just didn't know. I don't follow the deeds of this individual very closely. But if he or anybody else is saying some sensible things, then clearly that should be encouraged.
Hi, former Prime Minister. My name is Josh Aronson. I work for Maariv newspaper in Israel and several Jewish newspapers in the UK. First of all, thank you for your support after the attack in Heaton Park. My synagogue, I'm a member of that synagogue, so we appreciate it dearly. My question is, report seems to suggest that the reasoning behind the quick recognition of the Palestinian state by Keir Starmer was as a result of Brexit and trade agreements.
What?
So I was given intelligence.
That's a good one, and that's a new one on me. I love Brexit passionately, as you can imagine. I think Brexit's wonderful. Brexit's about democracy, by the way. It's about the ability of a country to set its own laws, the people of that country to kick out of government the people who make those laws if they don't like them. I think it's what people in Israel believe in as well. And I think it's a fine thing. I don't think Brexit had anything to do with...
Was the trade agreement with the EU, I was told that France requested that from the UK in order to create that...
No, well, I'd be very surprised. So I did the trade deal with the EU in 2020, I think, 2019, 2020. That subject, I can assure you, did not come up. And if it had, we would have kicked them in the pants, because it's nothing to do with it.
We have 2 more minutes, so very short questions, please, and we'll have
we all know Andy Vermoot from indegazette.be from Belgium. We all know that Hamas was sponsored by Qatar.
Yeah.
We know they are sponsored by Turkey. We know that the Muslim Brotherhood is actually led by Erdogan, sorry. And so I'm asking, why are we still buying oil to Qatar? if they are supporting terrorism? Why there are never sanctions against Qatar? And why is Turkey still a NATO member?
Well, I think that you'd have to ask. I mean, I think there are complexities in the way what the Qataris, I think, would say is that they were asked to be supportive. I think that's what and they were asked by the United States. I think that's what they to fund the government of Gaza. I think that's the argument that they make. But yeah, look, I mean, we've got of course, I mean, the reason the October the 7th massacres took place was not just that it was a grotesque act of terrorism by Hamas who wanted to destroy Israel, but they were set on and sponsored to do it by people who wanted to destroy what I think was an incredibly promising rapprochement between Israel and the rest of the Arab world. And you know, Israel and the Gulf states, Israel and Saudi Arabia were then on the path towards what could be an extraordinary economic partnership. One of the attractions of Israel is it is the most dynamic, the most fertile economy, the most innovative economy in the area by miles. And of course, the neighboring Arab states want to cross-fertilize, and they see the advantage of partnership with Israel. And I think that what happened was that the Iranians, Hamas, wanted to interrupt that process. And that's why. But I think it will renew. I think it will start again. And that's my hope. And that will be a profoundly positive thing. Anyway, I've talked for far too long. Is that enough? Okay.
We'll have one last question. Let's have the lady the honor to finalize the questions. Please go ahead.
So I'm Hodaya from Makor Rishon newspaper in Israel. And given your experience as Prime Minister, what should Western governments learn from Israel's struggle against terrorism and existential threat? And also, you've been talking about a two-state solution, and I just wanted to ask, you know, after October 7th, and given that half of the Palestinians, by polls, still think that October 7th was a good thing, don't you think that the idea of a Palestinian state is a threat to Israel, is a danger to Israel, and unless they, you know, reform in a way that no one can imagine, is it even a good idea?
Well, I think that it's not a good idea if they continue with their current manifesto of violence and hate. And I don't think, honestly, that it's going to happen anytime sadly, in the near future. I mean, it's just not something that is really. How can you expect Israel to accept as a neighbor an entity that wants to destroy it? That's not going to happen. I think in the long term, you could imagine some sort of devolved settlement where you had a Palestinian political unit, a state, but not a state that had a monopoly of the use of violence, not a state that had an army, not a state that was capable of invading Israel, not a state that was capable of aggression. It would have to be a different arrangement. And, you know, some sort of federal structure down the line, I can see that happening. But you're completely right. I mean, it's not easy to see how that happens right now.
And about what Western world should learn from Israel?
I think we've got the lesson is that things can take time. And that in order to, and that's been the lesson of the last 2 years, right? Democracies are very impatient. Democratic politicians find it very difficult to keep things going that are very difficult for a long time. And the world has got very impatient with Israel over Gaza. I think the lesson has got to be sometimes, you know, it is not easy to fix these problems. And when you have terrorist groups that are really committed to your destruction, it's going to take a very long time.
if it's going to be a short questions to a short answer. Okay.
Any comment on the eventual role of former Prime Minister Tony Blair?
Yeah, I was.
That post-conflict?
I think, look, I mean, you know, I opposed him for many years, of course. I'm a conservative, in case I forgot to say that. He's a Labour guy. And you know, we didn't agree about everything. But I thought he did a good job. And by the way, I thought Donald Trump did a good job with the deal to get the hostages out. I was very, you know, I wasn't surprised when eventually they said that they didn't want Tony Blair running Gaza. I wasn't surprised, to be totally honest. But you know, fair play to the guy. He got a deal going, and you know, the elements of that deal are very like the deal that helped to end the conflict with the IRA. But what we haven't yet got is the crucial thing, which is the IRA did agree to disarm or to put their weapons beyond use, if you remember. It really did happen. And they really did become democratic politicians. It really did happen. So Blair's right, that's what needs to happen. But, you know, as the lady just said, my anxiety is that Hamas in their heads are nowhere near admitting that.
Thank you. Rabbi Margolin, closing remarks?
No, the only thing I would just say is that I think that what we are asking for is not a charity, but it is a justice. And Prime Minister, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for your support and your leadership. And I very much hope that your message will get out, and that current politicians and prime ministers will take your leadership and will take example and will do the necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.